Hi, I'm Karen McNeil, and welcome to Napa Valley Rocks, celebrating the science, history, leadership, and winemaking practices that have made the Napa Valley renowned. Most of what we'll explore is derived from the results of 3 scientific research studies. But we'll also look at the people behind the wines and their pursuit of excellence. Located a little more than an hour north of San Francisco, this young New World wine region has been growing grapes for less than 200 years. Napa Valley is North America's great wine capital, one of the most treasured, yet also one of the smallest wine regions in the world.
Despite its large reputation, the Napa Valley is relatively small in size. At its widest point, it's just 5 miles across the valley floor and 30 miles long. Napa Valley vineyards produce only 4% of California's total wine grape harvest, and just 9% of Napa County is planted to grapes. That's about 1/8 the size of Bordeaux's planted acreage.
The Napa Valley is California's first AVA, or American Viticultural Area, designated by the U.S. government in 1981. To become an AVA, a wine region must represent distinguishable characteristics like climate, terrain, culture, and history. Since 1981, 16 additional AVAs have been established within the Napa Valley, demonstrating the incredible diversity of this area.
The Napa Valley contains half of the world's soil orders, a classification which describes how soils are formed. Research conducted about the valley indicates it may be one of the most geologically diverse wine regions in the world. Its Mediterranean climate provides near-perfect growing conditions during the peak growing season, with little rainfall and warm summer days, but cool nights.
Not only is the grape harvest here small, but the wineries are too. 95% are family-owned, and nearly 80% make less than 10,000 cases of wine per year.
In spite of its small size, the Napa Valley wine industry has a big impact, generating 46,000 jobs locally and more than 300,000 in the U.S. It contributes more than $53 billion annually to America's economy.
As you watch this series, you'll not only learn about the facts, figures, science, and history behind the Napa Valley, you'll also see how vintners here are leaders, committed to enhancing the land, their wines, and their community. So open a bottle of Napa Valley wine and enjoy discovering why Napa Valley rocks. Napa Valley, one of the world's smallest wine regions, is also one of the most diverse. We have only to look back, about 150 million years to understand why.
Here in California, we have dramatic geology. The ocean floor pushing up with the volcanoes coming up, with the valleys being formed and carved. It's all recent geology here in California.
Geologically speaking, this is a new area. We're literally born yesterday in geologic time. Mount St. Helena, the Vaca Mountain Range, the Mayacamas Mountain Range, all this was under ocean floor. So about 150 million years ago, through plate tectonics, this area was uplifted, and at the same time mixing up this big soup of what we call bedrock material or parent material of soil. And then over millions of years, it's been exposed and then eroded into the different soil types that we have today.
The rocks, the gravel, the sand are carried down into the valley floor, and we'll have lighter soils with more gravel and sand, and then heavier soils with more clay. As you head down to Carneros, you're looking at the bottom of San Francisco Bay. So we go from almost barren rock hillsides to relatively deep, balanced, fertile loam soils.
An astounding 50% of the world's soil orders are found within the boundaries of the Napa Valley appellation. This means that numerous grape varieties thrive here, and those varieties provide a vast range of delicious flavors.
The real point, though, is how does that soil affect what the roots can get in terms of water and nutrients? How does the vine grow? Is it going to be big, lush, produce lots of fruit, or tiny little berries?
When you think about the soils, and all the soils that are really the best soils to grow the best grapes you can possibly grow, think of these beautiful alluvial soils that come out of the hillsides, the fluvial soils that move actually on the valley floor. And down in San Pablo Bay, down in the southern part of Napa Valley, we all know that Pinot Noir loves these calcium-rich soils.
over at Stag's Leap on the eastern side are right at the base of the Vaca Range. Again, you have a lot of volcanic nature there. It's relatively infertile, but also very deep so that you get some wonderful root growth, which is important to the stability and longevity of the vine. I can't think of any other world-class wine-growing region that has this diversity, and I can't think of any other place that has this type of complexity.
Many factors, of course, contribute to the flavor and the quality of a wine. Climate, for example. What is it about the climate of the Napa Valley that makes it such a great place to grow grapes?
Napa Valley's location is approximately 1 hour north of San Francisco, along the coast of California. It's a Mediterranean climate, which is unusual. Only 2% of the world's climate is a Mediterranean climate.
Warm days, cool evenings, and dry summers allow Napa Valley's wine grapes to ripen slowly and evenly. At night, cool marine air and fog roll in, which helps grapes retain acidity as they ripen. By morning, the fog burns off and the cycle begins again. This steady rhythm of rising and falling temperatures ensures the critical balance between sugar and acid, which in turn helps create Napa Valley's beautifully balanced wines.
Napa is very unique from a climatic standpoint because we have 3 distinct major climatic zones in one small contiguous area. And within each of those major climatic zones are sub-microclimates. So you can fine-tune the style or type of wine you can produce.
The region's diverse topography completely impacts temperatures throughout the valley. On some summer days, it can be 15 degrees cooler in the southern part of the valley than in the warmer northern part. Combined with the valley's diversity of soils, temperature variations allow Napa Valley's vintners to grow a wide variety of grapes. And unlike many wine regions, Napa Valley has little or no rain during the growing season, so there's a lot of consistency from one vintage to the next. If you like a certain Napa Valley wine this year, chances are you'll like it next year too.
The rain only comes during the winter months. This allows grapes to grow in an ideal environment without a lot of risk of mold and other types of diseases brought on by the rain. Napa has all the stars aligned. It has the geography, the right place in California. It has the right soils, the right geology, and the perfect climate for making world-class wine. And I don't know of any other place in the world that has all of those unique factors coming together at the same time.
Viticulture, the science of growing grapes, is an inherent collaboration between people and place.
When we talk about styles of winemaking or the amount of intervention that a winemaker might have, one of the things that I think is true in Napa is that we have so many great sites and so many small producers who are committed to those sites that we really have an opportunity to have terroir-driven wines.
One viticultural practice that sets Napa Valley apart from many other wine regions is that grape growers here farm in a way that results in low yields. Grape clusters are intentionally thin during the growing season, so they produce about half the yield of some other California wine regions. As a result, only the healthiest and highest quality fruit remains on the vine. This translates to vivid-tasting wines that are rich and concentrated.
The Napa Valley is known for some of the best grapes and wines in the world, and in order to create that, we can't be piggish. We really need to see what is the optimum amount of fruit that each vine or even each shoot on a vine should carry.
You know, when people think of Napa Valley, the first grape variety they're going to think of is Cabernet Sauvignon at a world-class level. When you have so much diversity in an appellation, you plant a Cabernet Sauvignon vine here in St. Helena, just right down the street in the Oakville or Rutherford AVA, it's going to be different.
Diversity is what gives Napa Valley vintners such an amazing palette of styles and flavors. They can choose to highlight a single site or create a beautifully complex wine from multiple vineyard sources. Napa Valley vintners also embrace research and technology with the goal of improving quality year after year.
If you really compare 30 years ago today, the big change is the fruit itself. They're the things that we do with our canopies to manage even ripeness of fruit. They're the kinds of things that we understand about water to keep the concentration of the flavors and still keep the vines growing and healthy.
We're really on the cutting edge of things like new trellis systems, new fertilizers, new types of compost. We're very receptive to new technology. We're always trying it, and we're using it to make better and better vineyards. For the Napa Valley to continue to excel as it has in the past, we need to continue to improve what we're doing and get to the next level. And I think that's a motivation for very many of us that farm here and make wine here.
The Napa Valley has become synonymous with the great grape Cabernet Sauvignon, and a majority of winemakers here produce it. But thanks to the diverse soils and growing conditions, all kinds of varieties flourish in this one small place.
We are so fortunate here in Napa Valley to have such great conditions that encourage the growth of Bordeaux varietals such as Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, Merlot, and Sauvignon Blanc, but also Burgundian varietal such as Pinot Noir and Chardonnay.
You know, this Napa Valley is incredibly beautiful, and it has such diversity. All of these soil type differences, the climate, this allows then winemakers to either blend to a specific type or to find that specific site, that specific estate that sings to them, and that's what makes it beautiful.
Making wine from a single estate provides an opportunity to create a truly unique wine, one that speaks to a particular soil and its microclimate, to create a wine that captures the essence of a single place and time.
What's beautiful to me is to be able to have the opportunity to blend 6 different estate vineyards so that there are different aspects of terroir going into one blend. That means making a wine that has multiple layers of complexity.
There's a lot of confusion about the meaning of terroir. For the French, it means earth. So when we speak about terroir-driven wines, those wines need to reflect the essence and the character of the earth.
Cabernet Sauvignon accounts for 12% of California's wine grape harvest and makes up approximately 40% of Napa Valley's overall harvest. But it also represents 55% of the overall crop value.
Innovation and a curious spirit guide many different approaches to winemaking, but as any Napa winemaker will tell you, quality starts in the vineyard.
Our goal is always to listen to the grapes and do as little as possible in the winemaking process. This is to allow the fruit to express itself.
The goal is always quality over quantity. From grape growing through winemaking, we are always focused on getting the very best possible grapes into the bottle.
The crop yield in Napa Valley is typically 50% or less than the average crop yield in other parts of California. It's an intentional decision made by Napa Valley's vintners and growers.
We're always looking to the latest research to supplement our intuition and our practical experience. For example, now with the optical grape sorter, we can select the berries that we want to go into our wine. We can select fruit with very tight specifications based on color, shape, and size.
Napa Valley is one of the few, if not the only, premium wine regions to have a university experimental vineyard. The UC Davis Field Station in Oakville works exclusively to improve viticultural practices. This continual emphasis on quality, constant improvement and innovation has helped keep Napa Valley wines among the most desired in the world.
Napa Valley is unique. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else in the world. This is where I want to be.
Napa Valley's rich winemaking history began well before the California Gold Rush. In the late 1830s, George Yount, founder of the town of Yountville, planted the first commercial vines in the valley. Ever since, a host of immigrants, pioneers, visionaries, and risk-takers have made their way to the valley and have contributed to the region's rich and colorful history.
The first vintners to come to Napa Valley were Europeans, like Jacob Schramm, Jacob Berenger, Gustav Niebaum, and Charles Krug, all eager to try their hand at making wines to rival and surpass those of their homelands. These were the pioneers of the Napa Valley wine industry.
In 1861, Charles Krug planted 540 acres to grapevine and started Napa Valley's first commercial winery. The valley experienced its first boom in the 1860s and 70s as more than 140 wineries flourished here.
That big boom was followed by the big bust at the end of the 19th century. Phylloxera, an insect that devastated the vineyards of Europe, arrived here. In just 12 years, planted vineyards went from 16,000 acres to just 2,000.
Coming on the heels of World War I, the Volstead Act, better known as Prohibition, meant that only a handful of wineries were able to stay in business by making sacramental wines. Most vines were taken out, and agricultural land was either converted to other crops, like walnuts or plums, or used for cattle grazing.
After the repeal of Prohibition from 1933 to the mid-60s, a new group of pioneers like Georges de la Tour, Andrew Chelychev, John Daniels, the McRaes, Joe Heitz, and Robert Mondavi started to reinvent the wine business of Napa Valley.
The Napa Valley Vintners was founded by 7 wineries in 1944 with the idea that if they worked together, the stronger the industry would be. This idea still runs on today.
This valley has been shaped by numerous immigrant groups, European and Chinese in the late 1800s, and Hispanic workers from the mid-1900s. All are part of the fabric that makes the Napa Valley what it is today.
And then came the Paris tasting of 1976, which was a turning point both for Napa Valley and for California, because Napa Valley wines for the first time were blind tasted in this tasting, and they prevailed among the standards of excellence for Cabernet and Chardonnay.
It gave credibility to California wines that they had never ever had before.
One great aspect of the Napa Valley is the incredible spirit of cooperation and unity of purpose. It's a powerful combination that exists here. That shared vision is one of continuing improvement, both in the field and in the winemaking and in the marketing practices, all attainable through this amazing spirit of cooperation that exists here in the Napa Valley.
In the 1940s, there were just a handful of vintners in the Napa Valley. But these farmers and entrepreneurs already understood that by working together rather than individually, they could accomplish more. And thus a novel, even radical idea began to take form.
The Napa Valley Vintners started with just a few of the winery principals and winemakers working together to do really 2 things: to try to produce better quality wines, and then to try to have those wines recognized by the public of being great wines that belonged in the company of the great wines of the world.
What sets Napa Valley apart is our consistent quality, high quality wines produced year after year. What comes with a big reputation, unfortunately, is sometimes those who want to trade on our good name and deceive consumers. And so for a number of years, we've been working to protect the Napa name.
When consumers pick up a bottle of wine that says Napa Valley on it, they'll recognize that these grapes and this wine was made in Napa Valley. We think this is paramount to make sure that our customers know what they're getting when they buy a bottle of our wine.
What started in 1981 as a community fundraiser has become one of the most renowned charity wine auctions in the world. Auction Napa Valley is an unprecedented effort by a single industry. Vintners working together to take care of the people in their community.
Auction Napa Valley is probably one of the most important parts of what we have done as a community.
We've been able to donate back to the community more than $100 million to many nonprofit programs in the areas of healthcare, youth development, and affordable housing.
Napa Valley vintners farm under the most rigorous and often self-imposed land use environmental guidelines of any wine-growing region anywhere. From the vineyard to the bottle, vintners here also use sustainable practices as part of the Napa Green certified programs. The goal is to ensure the environmental health of the Napa Valley now and for generations to come.
The Napa Valley has been a leader in environmental causes long before being green was in, and in fact established the first ag preserve in the United States.
The agricultural preserve, established in 1968, was able to prevent suburban sprawl to move up and down the Napa Valley.
What we're trying to create here for the future is agriculture that is sustainable, businesses that are sustainable, a beautiful place that is protected forever, and a community that is well taken care of.